Besingakhathi endlini yabayisikhulu lapho imalunga bekatsingisa khona umbiko i-midterm budget report lethulekwe induna yetemafa umhlonishwa Neil Reckenberg. Sibiyela khona ke endlini yabayisikhulu sichubeka nayo i-debate yemalunga. Kanti ke itase yasukuma indvuna iletha timphendvulo kuleminye yemibuto nema-concerns laphakanyiswe ngamalunga eParliamente elijabayisikhulu. Asingaphothise maseko mbukeli asivele ke singene ngakhathi endlini yabayisikhulu.
Bahlonishwa bayati usingithi abasticke to 3 minutes why bayati labahlonishwa lengibabidala hlonishwa semafutheni 3 minutes
Angibonge mhlonishwa speaker manje esinye isikhathi sami sesidlekela kuhlekeni cha mhlonishwa kuncane mina njengalisekela la lapha ka finance committee Minister wami lona Nkosi yami kanje nje ngisafuna nami ukuthi manje ngiphose esivivaneni ukucela nje nekubonga ukuthi siyabonga ukuthi uthi lapha emaholo atawukhula athi ngiyabona kushothi usho ngoba imali yabogogo itabe seyingifakiwe kulomnyaka itawukhula imali yabogogo ukhuluma lokho nje Minister Mr Speaker bahlonishwa bakhululeke mina nje ngika finance committee make sure ukuthi imali yabogogo iyakhuphwa lo mnyaka lodawo ngibuye Mr Honorable Speaker ngidawucela ukuthi Minister wami vele ngoba sidawu besebenzisana kuze kuphumelele live akayende le loan bill letawukhona ukuthi ibambise le budget yelive i loan bill letawukhona kubhadalela ngeminyaka khona sidama operational njengabo micro project bayithole njalo imali yabo ngesikhathi kutokukhona ukuthi kwanze imisebenzi le live lonke likhona ukuthi lisebende ngoba lethi ngapha incane takhona kutakhe umnotho nangabe imali ingene ku micro project naleyo imisebenzi lemincane kutokuphela ukuthi esiyabuya sikhala ukuthi hey Minister lana kusebendeki ngiyacela ukuthi akayibuyise masinyane nje ukuthi sivala Parliament abayibusile leyo loan bill ibamsenana yemgwaco ngoba labahlonishwa uthagcina bangasafuni ukusiphasisele maloni ngiyacela nje Honorable Minister through you speak ngibuye ngithi ngicela ukuthi le mali vele ayibuye itokhona kubambisana nabo ICT nabe kunjani abasakhele i-system yekumonitor lapha ka health lama drugs ukuthi iphilisi lingenile emhlakabani lahamba la yakuphi lagcina lifike kubani ID number yakhe nayo lo dlile liphilisi nangabe kungasiye ICT ukhona la thutana nang TLC la ndasi la unayo le system asisebenzise yona sibone ukuthi sinikana ini basinike le system yabo si-monitor sing-ICT ngala sisebenzise ukuthi ibhedlela tahulumende sisebenze tonke netikolwa nathi uhulumende sitawubona sibabambisa njani solo i-butter tray sibone indlela ukuthi siphilisane singasola nje inkampani ngephandle etawufuna le mali esite yona asikubambeni lapho nje cabinet ngiyacela ukuthi ayikubambise Minister Finance nawe Minister ICT ukuthi kusebenzeke ngendlela lengiyo ngalendlela leyo utawusebenzeka kukhala ngakudla etikolweni kudla sifuna kubona uvela ungene ku system njenganayi ilebe elikhetho nana yesibayi system ubone ukuthi emoyeni esikolweni emhubhe esikolweni le mafutheni inkundla kungene kudla lokungaka sothi awukhona ke kubona ngoba ingaphe indvuna isi awukudla kufikile etikolweni akwendiwe ma system ICT waloko kuthi usita le live ngiyacela lama system akho lapha lo commissioner akasebena naningabambisana nabo ngicela nje Minister ukuthi lokho nani le cabinet ngalesibili kusukumiseni kuthi osebenzeke mbambiseni bo Minister ukuthi kusebenzeke ngoba lana sitawupheka uhotsana onke lamalanga kanti isolution sinayo siyiParliament manje anifuni ukusaya i-decision letulu siyacela sibambisanana ngibuye ngithi ke nalendzaba ye corruption
ngihlonishwa semafutheni your 3 minutes is gone
cela kwayindapha kokugcina
gone 3 minutes is gone
ngiyabonga speaker wami ngicela nje kwayindapha kokugcina
hlala phansi mafutheni hlala phansi mafutheni siyabonga mhlonishwa semafutheni lo ushido ukuthi induna yakho le nisebenza nayo soda ayibona ke ngoba nisebenza kanye uyinikelo lokunye lokusela mhlonishwa sengutheni
angibonge Honorable Speaker ngawukhuluma nje 3 ma points mina mine directed nje kule budget support loan bill ngasho nje ngithi bengingayibheki from ema discussions esibe nawo eParliament and wonke umuntu bekakhala ngemgwaqo bengifuna kubuza nje ukuthi ku minister ngabe kanye nolalela abani akalaleli le labo MP laba khethe ngesive naleti khalo leti khona even lokuthi phela address lawo ma issues la qhamuka le siven mina nje kube kuya ngami bengathi noma seyifika le loan bill siyikhulumisa kabanti singayiphasisi so sinayifika amane asiceli asichazele ayi break it down ukuthi lo 100 million malini letaka RDF noma ka micro projects aphinda asho ukuthi ngimalini lotaka ka health asho ukuthi ngimalini lotaka pension underfunding le cishe onke ama institutions khalwa ngepension underfunding bantu basebenza ba retire kude labakuthola kwefasteleni aphinda asho ukuthi ngimalini loya eUNESWA ku addressa lama issues ase UNESWA kusinga approve nje blanket 100 million lokukhanza mhlawumbe uya project yinye kanti sinema issues la cut across a number of ema industries kwegcina mhlawumbe minister bengingabuda nje ukuthi kule alcohol levy ne tobacco levy lokuthi bekacabanga ema figures la ngakanani na kule VAT lokuthi bacabanga ukuthi utayikhulisa ngama figures la ngakanani ngiyabonga.
Sibonge mhlonishwa wase Ngutseni nonke nende njalo ke bahlonishwa nina labathathu labasele. Mhlonishwa Sembolonjeni.
Ngibonga Mr Speaker. Honorable Speaker, siyabonga kakhulu ukuthola lithuba njengaleli. Sibonga ireport yakhe minister asithulele yona. Lemnanzi kangaka kepha ke ngoba isikhathi sesincane sebakhulumile bahlonishwa kakhulu kodwa bengidamcela minister ukuthi kusatoba insandukati ebahlonishwa amana abambisana nesithando sebahlonishwa lekuthiwa micro project kubo bonke labahlonishwa labakhona la angicabanga ukuthi kuthi umhlonishwa lo kamcabanga micro project bese ngacela ukuthi amana asibukele lo hlangoso enzabeni ka micro project sinetinkinga kakhulu sikhanza sishayisana lapha nabo mafutheni basengelele lapha eofisini la khona ukuthi sifuna lokuthi lesive sitakale lemakhaya micro project bobonke labahlonishwa babukene manje masifika ka micro project sikhanza ukuthi micro project yakhala ukuthi akunalutho phindze ngibuye esigabeni sekuthi kunana indzaba yemigwaqo angadi singenda kanjalo Mr Speaker ngisangisho ukuthi nganyelanga yokubewedwa endlini bahlonishwa bavayelekile makhona ukuphuma indzaba yale migwaqo imatima kakhulu angadi minister ukuthi uyabuke ukuthi ngendeka kanjalo lohlangosi lolu because kubonakala ngazi ukuthi indzaba lemigwaqo sekusehlakalo akusahambe kakhulu ngalendlela mina nje lekithi embolweni senze ngisabe nokuyemgcwabeni nawuthi ufika lemgcwabeni bakubute ukuthi lemigwaqo bakhuluma bamamede kuphazamiseke ngisho bafundisi angathi lokuthi singaze sende njani usuku sowuyekele nje ukuthi uyobuka kulabantu bakhulunywa ngale migwaqo khulunywa ngale migwaqo ugcina sowusake ukube nawo ubone baze babude ukuthi uhambe phi nje usuzofika la sengisho ukuthi mawungasilungisela lokho minister wami ngathemba ukuthi bahlonishwa ungathi nawo udala endlini bakuhlangabethe lapha ngephandle esikhothi batokufaka la ngikhathi endlini besicela lokho ukuthi sebakhulumile ke bahlonishwa bengicela ngigcine ngoba Mr Speaker usithe sinika 3 minutes kodwa bekashitho simini wasembolonjeni ngasho ngoma 10 minutes besicela minister wami ukuthi manje usibukela kubogogo kumatima kakhulu uyabona nje le ndasi la sikhama khona thina kuna isizabetshazi nje lentekile kukhanzakala ukuthi lo lelide labo selivele intavele lishonele khona le ngoba umlo omdzalana sakhona nje ekhaya nakathi uthi unayo igesi unawo imandi uyakhanda ukuthi uyaphila nathone kudla ukhanda ukuthi uyaqhubeka uyaphila but ke ngoba nyalo minister wami sekufele konakele sekukhuphuka nalamandi ke nyalo vele nje kusakhulumeke sesiyifuquda nje emakhaya uyothi uthi uhamba bathi kude abantu ndibadla dodwa nini uyabona ke abantu asebakhuluma lo hlangosi lo besicela ukuthi minister mane umane usibukele lo hlangosi lo uyabonga bahlonishwa bese bakhulumele kunene
Sibonge mhlonishwa Sembolonjeni mhlonishwa Sekhubuthi.
Ngiyabonga mcondzisi ngithusana leti impahla todwa mcondzisi ngicela nje kwenta i-comment yami kule midterm
budget review ya Honorable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, ngiyafuna ukuthi induna ibe aware ukuthi there is no economic activity now in the country at large. If you look at the revenue, letholwe levy 7 billion. The bulk of this money is coming from pay as you earn and lenye ibuya ku VAT. Uyatibuta ke lo ukuthi lama collections langaka abuya kubobani because a government is failing to pay ema suppliers. These people bayasebenta MSMEs are under pressure, they are closing down because government is failing to pay ema suppliers. These people they by a supplier, by a sebenta, by service, target inhlelo tabo micro project. Afikele emakhaya a subcontract tinkapan. But at the end of the day, ema suppliers they are not paid by government. And as a result, skanza ukuthi i-economy yethu le go to any shop, titolo le makhati yavalwa. Bethi imali labantu ngeva nje sikhuluma zababogogo. Emaswati onke langasebenzi awana mali. Onke nje lamaswati lale ngaphandle langasebenzi awana mali because of the failure by this government to create the economic activity for everyone. Le mali ihleti somewhere. La tewa khona Honorable Minister of Finance. But ngale kulabantu ayifiki through lama projects esikhathi ukuthi especially ama capital projects bengicela mkonzisi kwekuthi induna ayakhela uhlelo loluhlobako lokuthi le mali ifika njani lekubantu especially kumane kubhadaleka emaswati la service ahulumende lende ema business abo la se ende ukuthi emaswati lamanenge abade imisebenzi abade imali yokungena etitolo. But ikhanza bangasakhona ukuthenga yasiyavaleka ke economy ngale ngaphandle. Ngigcine ke Mr Speaker kuyo lendzaba lena ngikhale ukuthi eze ende ama collections akhe. Solomane asitholi ukuthi yini lesizathu lesenta ukuthi titolo ledwela lapha edolobheni tingafuni swipe. Kusho ukuthi lama figures nje langa awasi correct as long as kunetitolo letikhona laveni letingafuni account kuhulumende. But la maswati le mali ya collectwa le kule VAT kepha ayibuyi ngala kule consolidated fund through arrears. Lastly, Mr Speaker, arrears yena uhleti ehlombele maswati but le mali akayibuyiseli le kula maswati through service delivery. Uyasikhalisa ke lokho from le midterm review yakho Honorable Minister of Finance. Ngiyabonga Speaker.
Sibonge Mhlonishwa sekhubutha Mhlonishwa waseMadla Ngempisi.
Ngiyabonga Honorable Speaker. Kutaba kancane Speaker kungaba kubuta through you Mr Speaker ku Minister bengicabanga ukuthi ayikhuluma umhlonishwa wase Endonjeni. Nangibheka ngala ngaseKhakham Mr Speaker ngasemvembeli. Kune structure ngicabanga sing 20 million. Kwakuthiwa kwakhiwa noma university noma yini. But lapha kule structure kunema faculties la 3 nasiva thina lesihlala ngakhona. Kwakune manufacturing, kune agriculture, kune computer. The structure sinhle kakhulu Mr Speaker. But njengoba ngikhuluma nyalo ngicabanga sesinayo 10 years akuzange sekuhlale umuntu but kunebantu labahlala khona akwateksi bahlala kanjani ngicabanga ukuthi uyayati umhlonishwa wasendonjeni leyo kuyamangalisa ukuthi usakhiwa kanjani le mali yabuya phi yale structure leso ngendlule lapho Mr Speaker bengingacela Mr Speaker ku through Mr Speaker ku minister ukuthi ngaba njani la kule mali yabogogo ukuthi kube maybe na 100 labaye bamthatha ngoba bogogo back system kube ne-undertaker lesikhetha kothina ukuthi labo gogo automatical bangene ku-undertaker ukuthi kufakwe noma labo 100 kuthi gogo nakashonile wonke gogo lo holy pension kwade bekathathelwa 100 rand lestamngeta kule financial year lesitayingeta sathi labo gogo bataba safe kungaba ngiloko nje Mr Speaker kucela nje lo through Mr Speaker ku minister ngiyabonga.
Sibonge Mhlonishwa waseMadla Ngempisi, sibonge bahlonishwa ema debates lesenwendile. Induna yaka Finance, Minister of Finance, you can now respond.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Honourable Speaker, first of all, we'll start with the questions. First, we have some questions from Honourable from Lubamba, and many touched on the elderly. So you also touched on the elderly, and Honourable Speaker, it is a hot topic. And I think what we need to explain as government, we are very aware that elderly amounts are not been increasing. I think in 2019, Masankumbula Gahle, it went to 500, but since then it's been the same. And government has been increasing the budget towards what does one call to support, but we've been leaning towards the disabled. So as you all know, we've opened the same window for grants is the word I was looking for, to grants to the disabled, and we started a low amount and with a few people, and every year we've been growing the amount of people and the amount of money going to the disabled. And so, but I do agree with the honourables in the House, as many has touched on. I think it is time now for us to really seriously consider doing something to the elderly grant in this coming budget, and we'll definitely have a look at that and do what we can to add that into the budget allocations. Another very hot topic is micro-projects, Honourable Speaker. And so, Honourable Speaker, on the micro-projects front, I think, again, there's many different sections in micro-projects, because micro-projects is proving to be a very good service delivery entity. As government, we are using them more and more, possibly maybe even overburdening them, because many ministries now are using them, as well as the budgets. Before, there used to be a small budget for CDF and a small budget for RDF. Those budgets have grown over the years, meaning that the capacity really has had to grow with it. So we need to be careful not to overburden them, but because they're so good, we've put many projects in their hands. And I think what he was saying was, we speak of Nkwe, but there's no funding for micro. And so just to unpack micro, let's start with RDF. When we started this financial year, Honourable Speaker, there was 84 million emalangeni outstanding from the previous year. And again, I think some of the members of Parliament were saying, Minister, unfortunately those projects, because normally what we'll do is we'll just shut the year and try and start the next year, paying what we can. But there was a lot of pressure to say, some of those projects are already committed to, people have already been approved, we can't just shut it off. So this year so far, we've had to first settle the 84 million, which we have done for RDF for the previous year, and now we're starting on the micro projects account for this year. As far as I know, we've only paid about 20 million emalangeni of the 180, but understand that 20 is actually 100 million that has come out of the budget so far in the year that we are in. Unfortunately, we're playing a bit of catch up. Secondly, we have then ministries that have started projects. So many ministries, that even those that are here, are actually busy implementing Project Micro. Every week, there's priority, a contractor might leave, so you end up just putting money where you can. Cash flow constraints are impacting us very heavily on this. Then we've got CDF, Honourable Speaker. CDF, we try every week to do something at the moment. Beginning of the year, because of the cash flow pressures, there hasn't been much going to CDF. But over the last few weeks now, there has been, almost on a weekly basis, something going towards CDF. What I need to emphasize, Honourable Speaker, and that is that micro projects, it works in two different ways. With the government projects, they put a contractor in place and we pay the contractor as the need is there. But when it comes to RDF and CDF, they do work with a rule where they don't start the project until they have the money in their bank account from government. So if we do have contractors starting a bridge in the community and then having to stop halfway, that is actually not what we've structured micro projects. That should not happen. Micro projects should only start the project when the funds, be it the 500,000 or 200,000, whatever it is in the account, then they start the project, and they've worked like that. That has given them the efficiency that they deliver with, is because they work with that policy. So I'm sincerely hoping that they can continue working with that policy so that we don't hear these things of a project. Let's at least know that even if the project is delayed, at least when it starts, it's finished and the budget is there for it. So we will follow up on that to make sure that micro projects works with that same principle. But Honourable Speaker, this is really where this loan that I'm looking at the moment, let me touch on arrears at the same time, because many of the questions are coming around arrears, and it's linked into micro projects. When in 2018, we had a stock of 6 billion emalangeni of arrears. Over the years, we've been whittling that down. Some years from trying to find funding for it. Other years, we've actually underspent on our budgets. I think Honourable Kumalo was picking up to say that it looks like this year we're going to underspend again. Unfortunately, last year we slightly overspent, but we might have an underspend year this year. When we have an underspending year, we managed to reduce the arrears. But unfortunately, Honourable Speaker, we do need to actually deal with the arrears once and for all. Now that our spending is in line, arrears accumulation came from unfunded budgets and came from overspending in budgets. That has stopped. I can stand here quite proudly and say that a lot of that is no longer taking place. We are now spending
spending the budgets that we have, and overspending, the arrears, invoices and draws has really been reduced heavily, and there's strong disciplines now in controlling officers making sure that doesn't continue. And for that reason, I believe that we need to raise we're trying to raise two loans, 50 million from World Bank and 50 million from ADB, so that we can actually settle arrears once and for all. So that at least in hopefully 6 months' time, if we can raise this funding, this thing of arrears and paying micro slowly and not having money and cash flow constraints, if they think it's frustrating as MPs, it is extremely frustrating as a Minister of Finance working in arrears on a constant basis. It is really, cost of goods are higher. Whatever we're buying as government, whoever's supplying, government might not pay me on time, I'm going to charge more. Can you blame them for charging more if they don't pay them on time? Whereas if we can get our finances right and our arrears sorted out properly, we'll be able to get our cost of goods down in government. And hence, I will come with a loan, we'll remotivate it then. Unfortunately, someone was speaking about it is money for consumption. It is. But this money for consumption is going to save us a huge amount of frustration in the country. And I believe it will be the last budget that we'll have to raise. And I believe arrears will then be a thing of the past. Then we had questions from Honourable Manzini North, 3.1 billion increase to the wage bill is too much and should more go to capital projects. So Honourable, I think I also read, I think the newspaper headlines were saying something like 3.1, kind of making it look like it's for wage bill. It is not. We do have the salary review taking place now, which will impact us next year. So we do need to understand that we will need to look at that and to try and make sure that's a budgeted for. But at the same time, again, Honourable Speaker, I think we need to understand that the budget, when it comes, at the moment, we are just predicting. We're giving a loose shot at what we predict, what next year's budget will look like. The midterm is really to explain where we are. Please don't take the projections too seriously. It is really just a gut feel at this stage of what we think it might happen. So, Honourable Speaker, just to unpack that, don't take the projections too seriously. In fact, even Cabinet didn't even have a chance to apply themselves to those projections. It's very rough. We'll obviously have it very neatly tied up by the time we come for the budget presentation towards the end of February. We then have advice to say we need to spend more on investments and less on recurrent. I can't agree with Honourable Manzini North more on that point. We absolutely need to do this as a government. We end up eating the budget instead of spending it on growth items. Every year we are trying to increase that. I know we mentioned 6.6 billion possibly next year. I'm hoping by the time the outcomes come, it can be around the 7.5 so that we can grow. What we need to grow towards, Honourable Speaker, is 10% of GDP being spent on capital projects. That is really the goal which we need to try and get to as a country. We then had questions from Honourable from Ngaba. When will micro projects be paid? And I think there will now be a push towards the end of the year, as we normally do. We try and push the micro projects payment. We'll definitely continue trying to do that. And I think I've touched on what he mentioned about the contractor leaving site. That really should not actually happen in that space. We will double check on that. Honourable Eswatini 2 was talking about one or two things, but otherwise it was the clean water project in Eswatini 2. Again, Honourable Speaker, I think maybe because some questions were raised that really aren't necessarily relevant to a midterm budget review statement. And so when it comes to, for instance, asking on specific projects, as much as he is correct, I think he's talking for me, myself. I'm also drinking from the river at this stage as we speak, Honourable Speaker, but we do need to look at all these when the budget comes, and we'll review that. I know that there are big plans for more water projects around the country. Obviously, we're doing two major ones currently, and there are some big ones in the pipeline, excuse the pun, for us to be able to roll out over the medium term. Health, speed up medicine supply. We need a loan for health. Honourable Speaker, the health, so let me maybe unpack it this way. At the moment, there's a reason why, for instance, which is I feel bad even saying this, but certain payments get delayed and certain ones are prioritized at Treasury. We prioritize health spend. When health bills come, we make sure that within that week or latest the following week, we pay the health bills. When it comes to education bills, food for schools, free primary education, OVC payments, we prioritize those ones. You cannot keep those kind of things waiting. Fuel, if you don't pay fuel this week, next week we run out of fuel. We pay fuel that week. When it comes to scholarships, we make sure scholarships and allowances, we pay that week, or else you find if you don't pay this week, the response from people out there is so quick that you have to prioritize it. And hence, something like health and education is totally prioritized at the Ministry of Finance. And so hence, But what we are finding is to get the paperwork to, especially education, to get the paperwork for FPE, for instance, to the Ministry of Finance for payment is a very laborious process. It is massive heaps of paperwork. Each school must have each ID number, and then they submit, and there's 3 the same ID numbers, and it gets returned, and they must do it again. There's a lot of that. We need to definitely find an electronic system that this is done on, and it'll be absolutely quickly, and from the schools, just do this on a digital platform, and that feeds straight through, it can speed it up. So we are working on that, Honourable Speaker, but as I speak, unfortunately, it is still that old system. And that's actually, so getting a loan, it's not about a loan. It's about getting the budget spent in time and getting the paperwork, and raising it's not a cash flow constraint holding this up. Because it's prioritized, a cash flow constraint will help micro, for instance, but it's not actually going to help education nor health, because already they're prioritized, and every week they get the first bite at whatever cash comes in from the taxman. We then had questions from Mpolonjeni asking the increased budget from infrastructure needs to be roads, and roads are lacking. Let me touch on roads because roads are such a hot topic, Honourable Speaker, and I fully understand that I think this group of MPs have been very clear to say if there's anything we need to prioritise, it's roads. So, Honourable Speaker, when it comes to roads, first of all, let me speak of the previous term. Unfortunately, from 2018, I can maybe speak for my term coming in, we are inclined to try and keep everybody happy, and we try to do too many projects at the same time. We have constrained budgets. We have small budgets, Honourable Speaker. We can't afford to do 5 big projects in the country at the same time. And that's what's caused us huge stress in this country. And the problem is now we've got too many projects going on at the same time. We now delay the projects because there's not enough budgets even, let alone cash flow for the projects. And these projects get delayed, hence costs shoot up. People leave site, come back to site, and it's just chaos. So what we have been doing is trying to say, listen, let us reduce the amount of big projects going at the same time so that we can, when we start them, we can act with inquiry and deal with this and get the project off the books as quick as possible. It's done a whole lot cheaper in that way. So unfortunately, when it comes to roads, when we came in, we found a Skonuza road that was just a mess. Lot 1, Lot 2 was ongoing. We started the interchange at Manzini. As we speak, all those projects have now been finished and they are done. And now we can start one at a time. We can start projects. As I said, if we start the project, we nail it, we finish it, we get done, and we do it in a lump sum way, as the Skonuza road was done. The fact that we did it lump sum means it was done on time, it was done in budget, and the quality was great. So going forward, it's the only way to deal with capital projects. Unfortunately, we still have 1 or 2 legacy ones that are not lump sum. Those should be done very shortly, but lump sum is absolutely the way to go, and is going to save and make these projects deal. But as we speak, in fact, the reason why my PS isn't here, normally my PS would be here, is because we are in negotiations on the loan with ADB for the 2 roads that I'm speaking about that should be finalized. The loan bill will be here soon. Minister of Works and Minister of Finance have been working very hard on the 500 kilometre. In fact, it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was last week or the week before, it was at Cabinet. Cabinet is toing and froing on that, so we can really make sure we get the right balance of this 500 kilometres. What should be double seal? What should be single seal? What should be pro-base? The Minister of Works is working very hard on that in the background. Again, some of these don't need loan bills. Some can be done in the budget. Pro-base, for instance, doesn't need a loan bill. It's an agreement with pro-base. They get the loan from Malaysia Bank. And so it does not mean there shouldn't be delays. Once we have finalized it at Cabinet, we believe we can start rolling out quite quickly. And there's a lot of pressure from the Minister of Works to get this 500 kilometre plan into the system as quick as possible. We then have why are the arrears from previous years accumulating? What's the plan? I think when I was expanding arrears, I think I did touch on that, is to say that arrears is actually reducing, Honourable Speaker. It's not increasing. Arrears has been reducing. It's just this last 1 billion that flows, but in fact it goes from around 600 million to 1.5 billion. It's floating there in that space. It's been very tenacious. To get rid of that last bit of arrears, it's just been impossible. Hence, we're asking for a loan just to hit that once and for all, so we can get that sorted out. Medicine quality is not up to scratch. I don't necessarily think I'm qualified to speak on that. I really do believe that if that is the case, it needs urgent attention. University issues and food at school. So again, these issues are not budget issues. Actually, Honourable Speaker, the subvention that we pay the university is paid every month. And so, but unfortunately, some entities, some of our parastatals have lived beyond their means. And so unfortunately, we can't every time just come and say, right, okay, oh, you live beyond your means, let's chuck more money at them, take money from somewhere, which is whatever's more critical, and throw it at entities. Entities do need to start living within their means, They've got a budget, they must stay in the budget. We haven't cut their budget. Even when we've cut the national budget, we increased budget to university. So really, one has to say, university, feet to fire, get your processes right and your budgeting right so that you live within what you have. We then have, looking forward to IFMIS, thank you very much. You're right, I believe IFMIS is going to make a massive impact on our finances and on our reporting on finances. What is expected from the decline in SACU? So at the moment, Honourable Speaker, and maybe I think Honourable Lobamba Lumtala also spoke on SACU because we have the volatility and we have a SACU stabilization fund. So just a quick update on SACU stabilization fund. Last year, we managed to put 875 million into the fund. This year, we are planning on putting 1.5 billion into the fund, and the first 3 quarters have already been paid in. So as we sit here, there's about 2 billion in the SACU stabilization fund. Honourable Speaker, the year that we are going into now, SACU is down. So my prediction on SACU, it's probably, we're still going to get the final numbers, probably 10.4 billion MLR we're going to get from SACU. Now, Honourable Speaker, imagine if we didn't have the SACU stabilization fund, it means now our whole budget gets cut by 1.1 billion MLR, the budget goes down. Because we got the SACU stabilization fund now, we can take out what we need to be able to maintain, because the average that we've predicted that should come from SACU is about 11.5 billion over the term. And so which means that we now need to take out of the SACU services so we can keep it at 11.5 so that at least the revenue that comes from revenue services now increases the budget slightly. If it wasn't for that, our budget would probably go down in this coming year. And Honourable Speaker, we've had years of reducing budgets. It is a nightmare. It's a real chaos. It impacts Eswatini on the ground terribly when we have that. So the SACU Stabilization Fund really has a function, Honourable Speaker. I know it feels like savings. It's not savings, Honourable Speaker. It is a shock absorber, is really what we need to see that as. If we see it as savings, because Honourable Lumtala is right. If it was savings, you'd say, why would we save with these cash flow constraints? It really isn't. It's fulfilling a function of stability. And that stability is a lot more important than other issues at this stage. And so the fact that we have that in place, we believe, is absolutely have done the right thing. And unfortunately, SACU remains volatile. Like I said, next year we're down. We're down probably more than 2 billion MLR. It's down again next year, which normally would have knocked our socks off in the budgeting process. Because also we would have now spent the 13.75 billion that we had, and our expectation would be a lot higher. I then do get to the direct questions from Honourable Lobamba Lomtsara. In the current, at the end of March, what will the budget be? So at the moment, our predictions, Honourable, is that we're probably going to underspend by 900 million. Honourable Speaker, is what the predictions look like, but I must confess there's huge stress on supplementary budgets. So I had to report, unfortunately, on the numbers as I have it. But if a supplementary, there's huge request for supplementary. A supplementary budget will probably gobble up the 900 million, and I'm probably going to come here and ask honourables to please allow us to spend on certain things, meaning there probably won't be an underfunding by the time the dust settles. Road Authority, the 45 cents, quite a hot topic. So, Honourable Speaker, and this one is contentious probably, at the same time a little bit awkward to deal with. When we tried to implement the 45 cents on fuel, Honourable Speaker, because Honourable is correct, it was something that was passed by the House for us to do. We had 2 issues. Number one, the 45 cents was actually going to push our diesel price specifically. It wasn't pushing the petrol price. It was going to push the diesel price higher than our neighbours. And we've always managed to maintain our fuel prices in Eswatini to be slightly below our neighbours, meaning that Eswatini and visitors always fill up their vehicles here before they cross the borders. That gives us additional tax. It gives additional fuel.
As Minister,
just for a clarification from the Honourable Minister, is it 45 cents or 40 cents that was approved here? I don't remember 45. Yeah.
Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I thought it was 45, but I'm also indicating the Minister works and is showing me it's 40 cents. So they're probably correct. It's 40 cents, Honourable Speaker, is the actual number. And so, but on this 40 cents, Honourable Speaker, so we were in the process of wanting to actually apply the law. And that was the one thing. We realized if we apply the 40 cents, it means that the price is going to go beyond our neighbours' pricing, means it's got quite a big impact on the fuel volumes that we sell in Eswatini, number one. Number two, the Ministry of Works' team came to say that actually in the deliberations of this 40 cents, it wasn't going to be an additional on top of it. Was going to be, we're going to reduce the tax. We currently put 3 MLR 80 cents as tax on the fuel price. And they then actually brought the paperwork to show that in the deliberations, I'm not sure if it was committee stages or whatever stages it was discussed, said it was going to be. So that created a bit of confusion too. And so hence, Honourable Speaker, now when we then look to say what is possibly the best thing to do here, it is looking like the best thing to do is possibly in the next budget, we need to possibly reduce the tax from 3 Malangeni 80 cents with 40 cents and then put that 40 cents into the road agency fund. That's the current thinking, Honourable Speaker, that we are having. At the same time, we are working on, it's not only fuel tax that goes in there, it's the road tolls. So all the road tolls we collect from the borders, as well as fees and fines, is also going to go into the road agency. We're working on that, and it should be a very short space of time. And those road tolls and or border charges of people crossing the border should go into the road fund and should be able to then start the fund at least even before we get to March 2025. Legislating marijuana, Honourable Speaker, again a hot topic. I didn't see the notes in my midterm budget review on the marijuana topic, but I'll touch it anyway, Honourable Speaker, because obviously he's touching on it because it could be such a, he's right, it could be such a huge economic driver. If we could just get our fair share of tax from this industry, it'll actually obviously make a difference. Honourable Speaker, again, I presume that we are working on it. Again, there's pressure at Cabinet to be able to bring another bill. But to remind the House, we did bring 2 bills in the previous term, and unfortunately, you know, we would request as Cabinet, if there are differences that want to be made with bills, panel beat them, change them, make with them what needs to be done in the House. But to reject them or not pass them means it gets to us where we are today, where we brought 2, but it's been rejected. So just to defend Cabinet in this one, Cabinet has tried on this one. And if we bring another one, House, I'll plead with the House. If it's not what you want to see, fix it. That's your job. It's your right as the House to make whatever changes you need. But please, I agree, we do absolutely need to find a way of legalizing marijuana in Eswatini. Parliament instructed TLC PPP arrangements.
Mr. Minister,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't want to be seen to be interrupting the Minister, Mr. Speaker, but the only thing that, you know, I submitted on this issue is that as an economic driver, but like show before, but engines about health, you know, so amend or health. I think now we need a completely different bill altogether that will actually make this thing as an economic driver. That's where we are, Mr. Speaker. They are rejected. Thank you.
Back to your Minister of Finance.
No, thank you, Honourable Speaker. That's maybe a good idea. We possibly need to then look at drafting something in a different ministry. But unfortunately at the moment, because it is legislated as a narcotic and an illegal narcotic in the Ministry of Health's legislation, that was the previous place we've tackled it the previous times. So at the moment, obviously one goes there, one thinks of fixing this, but we take the advice. We then had the House instructing us to do PPPs with the Luke Commission. And nothing has come yet. I do know the Minister and the PS are working on something. Honourable Speaker, I know exactly, but again, I presume they can come and report to the House whenever they have got something along those lines. The cash flow constraints, but the stabilization fund, I think I did touch on that one. Why budget, but then slow process due to cash flows? Honourable Speaker, unfortunately, when we budget, we do presume that cash flows will flow as we hope that they will flow. We sometimes presume loans will pass. We presume that we'll be able to raise, for instance, something on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Unfortunately, we do make certain presumptions. And unfortunately, when those presumptions are not working out in the timing that we hope, we do then try and reduce expenditure so that we don't have too many projects where you have contractors leaving site and costing us a whole lot more. And so that's where those cash flow constraints come from. Will interest rates continue to decline? Honourable Speaker, this is the current view, and that is at the central bank repo rate. We are hoping, actually, indications are that there'll possibly another decline before the end of the year, and early next year, possibly another one. So that's the current predictions. We follow South Africa, so we look at what they are saying, and we probably will do very similar things on our side to what they do. Economic growth, Honourable Speaker, Eswatini looking like an outlier. So Honourable is correct. We do have the region and even the world speaking of about a 3%-ish kind of growth. Eswatini saying we're looking like we're growing at 8.3%. I understand, Honourable Speaker, we are normally erring with conservativeness. Normally, if you look at our projected growth, they're projecting much lower growth, and our growth has been exceeding projections. So even myself, I was impressed to see a prediction from the statistics team to say 8.3%. But, Honourable Speaker, there are just so many things that are coming to fruition in the next financial year that we do actually believe that this might be true. Keeping in mind, we're not going to be the best in the world. Many countries will even get 12, 13%. One does find sometimes many in the 7, 8, 9 category, Honourable Speaker. But unfortunately, because so many more, and especially the much bigger economies, are in the 1.5% growth space, it means the world's average is a whole lot lower. We then had some questions from Zingeni. Where's the 500 kilometers? I have touched on where that process is. Universities' cash flows, again, we really do put pressure that the university spends within their means. They are owing outstanding monies, and they are busy working on that as we speak. We saw they managed to make a plan now to try and get that right. Inflation of 4.2% feels worse in rural areas. He's got a very good point here, Honourable Speaker, Honourable Zingeni, in this one, because what one must keep in mind is inflation is an average of what is going on with all the different indicators giving inflation. From where we come from, in fact, the previous year, a high driver for inflation was food. Food was around, the increase in the cost of food was around 13% in the previous year. But when you put the basket together, because rent was 0 increases last year, for instance, you find that the average came down to about 5%, meaning that the man on the street, let's call it that, was feeling it a lot harder than the 5%. The interesting part is where we are now, Honourable Speaker, is now we are looking at a 4.2%, and the majority of the drivers are those that are more in the higher income bracket. It's more your rentals and your leisure that are actually pushing the inflation higher. Hence, we are hoping that the inverse is now correct, where someone on the street is now receiving if they're in textile industry, receiving a 12% increase because of the minimum wage that we keep on pushing up in the textile industry, but the inflation is even lower than 4%, that they should really start feeling the impact of the growth and the positive impact of our economic drivers playing out. And so it might not feel like it last year, but we actually believe the year that we are in, people should now start feeling that relief, and that should start coming through to the man on the street. Tobacco and alcohol, I don't want to spend too much time on this one, Honourable Speaker. We'll get to it when we bring that tax. So when we look at the tax at that point, all we're saying is we're just indicating, say, we are thinking of this at this stage. It's still far from even formulating it properly. We'll come to the House when that's ready. Some questions from Honourable from Mugwini in connection with we should engage the TV and radio to let the nation better understand what's going on. Thank you very much. I think it's very good advice, and we need to, we possibly need to engage more. As a Minister of Finance, we are trying to, on social media platforms, do a bit more that the nation better understands what we are doing as a Ministry of Finance, but I'm sure there's lots more we can do. Private sector led, but government shackles, as government does not pay. Not seeing new roads in 2018. I think I have touched on the roads. I don't think it's right to say there's been no roads in 2018. Honourable Speaker, there have been some roads, single seal roads, everything else, but unfortunately we've been burdened with finishing way too many roads that were started at the same time, and that was a huge burden, but at least they are now done, and we believe that we're doing the right thing there. But again, we can maybe speak on, I think he's also talking about we shackling the economy by not paying suppliers. Honourable Speaker, unfortunately, the industry has now become used to people saying, well, I'm waiting for funding from government. As I stand here, Honourable Speaker, there's about 350 million outstanding to suppliers in Eswatini. That's about 30 days supply, Honourable Speaker. So unfortunately, now there might be some paperwork still being processed in ministries. I'm not sure about that. And we are also confident that what we have will be cleared fully by the time SACU receipts come in. We always do that. SACU receipts come in. We clear suppliers 100%. Over the last year and a half, we've managed to do that. But unfortunately, it's now become a narrative. When someone isn't paying, they always, oh, it's government, and government hasn't paid, and that's become an easy narrative out there, Honourable Speaker. We have been fixing this. It is a whole lot better than it has been in the past, and I really believe that we now need to, and again, government, the outstanding suppliers is normally big suppliers. It's not really small SMEs that supply government. And so if you have these smaller businesses saying government's owing them, we need to just check that out to really make sure that it is true or not, because government generally doesn't work with small businesses. They normally work with medium-sized businesses that supply goods and services to government. Where the forensics on the ICC and Lot 2, again, a tough question, because the Auditor General does have independence. As far as I know, these audits were done. As far as I know, he was uncomfortable with them, and hence he hasn't submitted them. If you look at the Constitution, it's not the Minister of Finance that does it, nor government. He's got independence. And when he gives it to the Minister of Finance, I will table it. But it really is in the hands of the Auditor General. I get growled at often in my reviews because people say that the Auditor General hasn't got enough independence. I really do try and give them that independence. But at the same time, I must then push back to say I can't be expected to be held accountable for Auditor General. And so, which means I'm going to use the same independence that I get blamed for to defend myself with, Honourable Speaker. Recurrent budget should come down and capital increase. I've spoken to that and he's spot on. We absolutely need to improve on that, Honourable Speaker. Capital project should be done by Eswatini. Again, we've been around this block a few times, Honourable Speaker. We have a specific, again, I think he's touching on the Parliament building, and the Parliament building will be different. I think the Mpageni Dam that's being built at the moment is being done by a foreign company. But again, Honourable Speaker, when we went to tender on this project, it was going to cost us double, or it was going to cost us what it's costing us. And we ended up, we believe, for the best for Eswatini, not necessarily Eswatini contract companies, but for the best for the man on the street, what we've done is the best thing for the man on the street when it comes to the cost there, Honourable Speaker. We will see with the Parliament building. I believe it'll be handled differently. I don't believe it'll be the same structure as what we see at the dam. So hence, I believe Eswatini contractors will be the ones doing the Parliament building. We then have Honourable Ngongolweni talking about the assets like Weybridge are built and not used. And someone else, I think Honourable from Dlangambisi also spoke of structures that are not built. These are probably similar items. We do need to, these are real problems, Honourable Speaker. I'm not going to try and defend why Weybridges are built and not used. If we didn't want them, why did we build them? There's no defence for that. So I really believe that we need to have audits done, investigations done, and those kind of problems dealt with. Every government does an element of this, and we do need to try and make sure in Eswatini we don't have these kind of problems. Honourable from Mafuteni was speaking about Minister the elderly grant. I've touched on that one. Micro paid on time. We'll absolutely do our best between now and the end of the year to try and catch up what is outstanding there. And then to use TLC software for health. It has been raised in the House before that there is software apparently at the TLC which could solve our inherent problem at the Ministry of Health with pills coming into CMS but not knowing which pills go where and who gets what pills in their hands at the clinics at the hospitals. I presume the Ministry of Health, I think I see the PS or the PS was up there. They really are doing their best, Honourable Speaker. We see them active at Cabinet too. We really believe that they'll be doing the right things for the country to fix that problem. We then had Honourable from Ngutseni asking about how much to micro, and I think it was touching, you're saying if we get the loan, how much will we pay to catch up everything? So if we do raise the $100 million US in these two loans, we will catch up 100% is the commitment that we'll make of everything outstanding at Treasury is really what we're aiming at. Now, how much is going to pension, or how much to UNESWA, or how much to alcohol, or how much is going to those different entities, that I cannot touch on, because a lot of those monies, for instance, pension schemes, some parastatals are not paying the money which they deduct from the employees over to the pension scheme, Honourable Speaker. Now there's audits being done on this. We, as the director of PEU, is working on this and FSRA is making a big noise about it. We're now considering, do we possibly hold the money from the subventions at Treasury and pay the pension schemes? But this is not how it all becomes very unneat, Honourable Speaker. We really need to try and have our parastatals keep feet to fire and do good business. If you don't have the budget, don't spend the money. It's just the basic 101 business principles, and we've set them up as parastatals so they can run like business. But unfortunately, there's still an element of running like government when they become parastatals. We then have, we're getting very close to the end, Honourable Speaker, from Honourable Bolonjeni, talking about roads and...
Nice Minister. Planchwa DS.
Siyabonga Speaker, ngixolise Mhlonishwa Speaker, uMinister. Ubuthethuwe mbuto Mhlonishwa Ngutseni. Ngicela ufuna kuvale isithu impendulo kahle. Bute ngale levy yalamanti lawa ukuthi ngabe itakhuphuka itsini.
Planchwa DS chazela Minister kahle ukuthi ithi le question yesibili.
Siyabonga Mhlonishwa Speaker, ubute emibili. So uphendulile lokuqala wabuta nangale levy yalamanti. Ikhuphuka kanjani?
Minister of Finance.
Honourable Speaker, the way I'll explain the levy or the water, we're talking about the 4% that Eswatini Water Services are talking about. Okay. When it's like, okay, I get him now. No. Maybe I'm trying to avoid the question, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, when it comes to the alcohol levy, like I say, I think on this one, if we can park because we haven't even formulated the legislation yet. We're still working on draft legislation, Honourable Speaker. It'll come to the House will have a clear picture, they can argue it and they can decide to pass it or not pass it at that point. But we'll deal with it at that point, Honourable Speaker. We then had questions from Honourable Mpolonjeni on the elderly and the roads. I think I've explained those very well. Honourable Kubuta asked about economic activity is low and government not paying suppliers. I think I've dealt with the suppliers issue, and then some shops not swiping. Let me start on the economic activity, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, really our economy is actually in a very healthy space. We have had spikes of growth over the past. In fact, prior in the 1990s, early 1990s, late 1980s, we had good growth like we're having now. And I think, unfortunately, that was a bit artificial. I think there was certain amounts of sanction busting that was going in South Africa because of sanctions there, and that gave us higher growth. Unfortunately, after 1994 in South Africa, we found our growth really hitting low. We are now entering a growth phase that we haven't seen since then, Honourable Speaker. And hence, I know maybe it doesn't feel like it on the ground, but we are seeing it in the numbers, and the numbers are telling us the truth. And so we do believe that as we start seeing this kind of growth, Honourable Speaker, especially next year, looking at this 8.3, and even if they're wrong, we're talking of at least 6, 7 around there. So we do believe that activity will start having a big impact to the man on the street as this growth takes place. Shops not swiping, we are putting in a VAT system that we are hoping can stop that, Honourable Speaker. He is spot on, it's absolute abuse, and we do have entities dodging VAT and PAYE in that retail space. And so we believe what we're bringing in through ERS now with another VAT system is going to control that. And it should have very big impact on the amount of VAT we're collecting. Eswatini feel like they're paying taxes but not getting services. Unfortunately, a very broad question, Honourable Speaker. We do believe the taxes are going towards the 3 billion on health. We are paying every cent of it. The different funding that comes through, we believe, is going to the different places. So we are confident that in time we can there are inherent issues, but we believe we can solve the small issues that actually, in the grand scheme of things, are causing it to look like lack of service delivery. Our last questions from Madlanga Mpisi is structures not built. I touched on that one. Then elderly should also be on a funeral scheme. We have run trials now through the DPM's office with MVA, Masankumbulagatle, but we are finalizing regulations now. It's a very good idea. We absolutely do need to find a funeral, and it's not even expensive. It won't even cost 100 emalangeni. It was costing, I think, 10 or something like that to DPM Masankumbulagatle. It's surprisingly well priced, and we won't even deduct it from the 500 they get. We can make a plan as government to actually add it on top. But we do believe in a short space of time, DPM's office will bring those regulations, or I'll bring them for her, to be able to table in the House. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Minister for Finance, for all the responses. And baklonishwa siyabonga kakhulu, Madam Clerk.
Bukele ngenxa yesikhathi asibambe lapha ke luhlelo lwalemuhla lebesiqhamuka nalo ngakhathi endini yabayesikhulu. Sesema nje ukuthi yonke imisebenzi echubeka ngeveni ichubeka kahle kakhulu njoba neParliament solugijima ke kuye nkwe. Bukele ukuthi abasevingini letako ngekuvuma kwalomzala wedinsuku. Usale kahle kwalomuhla.
This festive season, Eswatini TV brings you a movie fiesta.
You tell me exactly what you saw.
10 minutes gone.
My name is Ian Swan. This man is my prisoner.
Drug court.
Which is why this